Let us begin by considering what it means to act as if we don't want anyone's attention. Is it not, in essence, a call to authenticity? To living our lives guided by our own internal compass rather than the fleeting approval of others. As I wrote in the Screwtape Letters, the greatest evil is not now done in those sordid dens of crime that Dickens loved to paint. It is not done even in concentration camps and labor camps. In those we see its final result. But it is conceived and ordered, mowed, seconded, carried and minuted in clean, carpeted, warmed, and well-lighted offices by quiet men with white collars and cut fingernails and smooth-shaven cheeks who do not need to raise their voice. In the same way, the greatest threat to our authenticity, to our true selves, often comes not from overt pressure, but from the subtle, insidious desire for attention and approval that permeates our society. It comes from the quiet voice that whispers, "What will others think?" It comes from the well-lit stages of social media where we are constantly tempted to perform rather than to be. But let us delve deeper into why we might feel the need to seek attention. Is it not often rooted in our own insecurities, our own fears of insignificance or rejection? As I explored in the problem of pain, we are not necessarily doubting that God will do the best for us. We are wondering how painful the best would turn out to be. In the same way, when we seek attention, we are not necessarily doubting our own worth. Rather, we are afraid of the pain that might come with being overlooked, with not being acknowledged or validated by others. We fear that if we don't actively seek attention, we might fade into insignificance. But my dear friends, this fear, while understandable, is misplaced. For true significance, true worth, true impact, does not come from the attention we receive, but from the authenticity with which we live our lives. As I wrote in Mere Christianity, humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself. This, I believe, is the key to understanding our topic today. To act as if we don't want anyone's attention is not to diminish ourselves or to hide our light under a bushel. Rather, it is to free ourselves from the constant need for external validation, to liberate ourselves to live authentically and purposefully. Consider, if you will, a tree in a forest. It does not grow tall and strong in order to attract attention. It does not produce fruit or flowers for the sake of admiration. It simply grows, fulfilling its nature, playing its part in the grand ecosystem of the forest. And in doing so, without seeking attention, it provides shelter for birds, food for animals, oxygen for the air, and beauty for all who pass. In the same way, when we act as if we don't want anyone's attention, we free ourselves to grow into our true nature, to fulfill our unique purpose, to contribute to the world in ways that are authentic and meaningful. But perhaps you're thinking, Lewis, this all sounds well and good, but how do we reconcile this with our natural desire to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be valued by others? This desire, my friends, is not wrong in itself. It is, in fact, a reflection of our deepest nature as beings created for relationship. As I wrote in The Weight of Glory, we do not want merely to see beauty, though. God knows, even that is bounty enough. We want something else which can hardly be put into words, to be united with the beauty we see, to pass into it, to receive it into ourselves, to bathe in it, to become part of it. This longing to be seen and valued is a reflection of our ultimate longing for union with the divine. But here's the crucial point. Just as God does not demand our attention, but rather invites us into relationship, so too should we not demand attention from others, but rather invite authentic connection through our genuine being and doing. So, how do we navigate this tension between our desire to be acknowledged and the imperative to act as if we don't want anyone's attention? The answer, I believe, lies in purpose, authenticity, and trust. First, purpose. When we are clear about our purpose, about the unique contribution we are meant to make to the world, we no longer need to seek attention for its own sake. As I wrote in The Abolition of Man, we make men without chests and expect of them virtue and enterprise. We laugh at honor and are shocked to find traitors in our midst. We castrate and bid the geldings be fruitful. In the same way, when we act solely for the sake of gaining attention, we rob ourselves of our chestnut, our heart, our conviction, our purpose. We become hollow, always looking outward for validation rather than inward for direction. But when we act from a place of purpose, we become magnetic without trying to be. We attract attention not because we seek it, but because we are fulfilling our unique calling. Second, authenticity. When we are true to ourselves, when we act from a place of genuine conviction rather than a desire for attention, we allow others to connect with us on a deeper level. As I wrote in The Four Loves, friendship is born at the moment when one man says to another, "You too. I thought that no one but myself." This kind of authentic connection cannot be forced or manufactured. It arises naturally when we allow ourselves to be seen for who we truly are, without the masks and performances we often don when seeking attention. And third, trust. Trust in the process of life, in the wisdom of timing, in the ultimate goodness of existence. As I wrote in Mere Christianity, aim at heaven and you will get earth thrown in. Aim at earth and you get neither. When we trust that we are valuable and significant regardless of the attention we receive, when we aim at fulfilling our purpose rather than garnering applause, we paradoxically become more likely to receive positive attention. But more importantly, we become free from the tyranny of others' opinion. Now, you might be wondering, but Lewis, what if no one notices us? What if our contributions go unacknowledged? This is a valid fear, one that many of us grapple with, but I would argue that it is better to live authentically and purposefully, even if unnoticed, than to live a life of constant performance and validation seeking. As I wrote in The Great Divorce, there are only two kinds of people in the end. Those who say to God, "Thy will be done," and those to whom God says, "In the end, I will be done." There are only two kinds of lives. Those lived authentically, in alignment with our deepest values and purposes, and those lived in constant reaction to the opinions and attention of others. The former leads to peace, fulfillment, and often, ironically, to the kind of genuine recognition we might have sought in the first place. The latter leads only to anxiety, emptiness, and a persistent sense of inadequacy. Moreover, when we free ourselves from the need for attention, we open ourselves to a world of possibilities. We become available for deeper, more meaningful connections. We allow ourselves to focus on our work, our growth, our impact, rather than on how we are being perceived. We give ourselves the gift of presence, of being fully engaged in our lives, rather than constantly monitoring our performance. Consider, if you will, the great figures of history who have made the most significant impacts. Were they not often those who were focused on their mission, their purpose, rather than on gaining attention? Think of Mother Teresa, working tirelessly in the slums of Calcutta, or Albert Einstein, lost in his equations and thought experiments. These individuals changed the world not by seeking the spotlight, but by being so engrossed in their purpose that the spotlight eventually found them. But let us be clear. Acting as if we don't want anyone's attention does not mean becoming a hermit or refusing to engage with the world. It does not mean hiding our light under a bushel or failing to share our gifts. As I wrote in The Weight of Glory, the load or weight or burden of my neighbor's glory should be laid daily on my back, a load so heavy that only humility can carry it, and the backs of the proud will be broken. We have a responsibility to contribute our unique gifts to the world. The key is to do so from a place of authenticity and purpose rather than from a need for attention and validation. This brings us to an important distinction. The difference between attention and impact. Attention is fleeting, often superficial. Impact is lasting, meaningful. When we act as if we don't want anyone's attention, we free ourselves to focus on making a real impact. We allow ourselves to be guided by the question, how can I contribute? Rather than, as we near the midpoint of our discourse, Let us consider how we might practically apply this philosophy in our daily lives. It begins, I believe, with self-reflection. Ask yourself, in what ways have I been seeking attention rather than living authentically? What fears or insecurities are driving this behavior? How can I shift my focus from being seen to making a meaningful contribution? Next, practice detachment from outcomes. This doesn't mean becoming indifferent or apathetic, but rather releasing your attachment to how others perceive or respond to you. As I wrote in the screw tape letters, indeed the safest road to hell is the gradual one. The gentle slope, soft underfoot, without sudden turnings, without milestones, without signposts. Don't let your desire for attention become the gradual slope that road to a life of constant performance and anxiety. Instead, choose to detach, to trust, to focus on your purpose rather than on others' perception. Practice presence and mindfulness. When we are fully present in each moment, fully engaged in our tasks and interactions, we naturally become less concerned with how we are being perceived. As I wrote in the screw tape letters, the present is the point at which time touches eternity. When we are present, we touch something eternal, something beyond the fleeting nature of attention and approval. We connect with our deeper selves, with others, with the divine in a way that transcends the need for validation. Cultivate your unique gifts and purpose. As I wrote in The Problem of Pain, we are not metaphorically but in very truth a divine work of art, something that God is making, and therefore something with which He will not be satisfied until it has a certain character. Focus on developing your character, your skills, your unique contribution to the world. When you are engrossed in this process of growth and creation, you naturally become less concerned with gaining attention and more focused on making an impact. And finally, practice generosity of spirit. As I wrote in Mere Christianity, pride gets no pleasure out of having something, only out of having more of it than the next man. It is the comparison that makes you proud. The pleasure of being above the rest. Once the element of competition is gone, pride is gone. When we act as if we don't want anyone's attention, we free ourselves to be truly generous. We can celebrate others' successes without feeling diminished. We can give freely of our time, our talents, our attention, without constantly calculating what we'll get in return. Now, as we move into the latter part of our discourse, let us consider the broader implications of this philosophy. What might our world look like if more of us chose to act as if we don't want anyone's attention? Imagine, if you will, a society where people are more focused on making a meaningful contribution than on gaining recognition, where social media is used for genuine connection and sharing of ideas rather than for self-promotion, where politics is about service rather than celebrity, where education is about growth and discovery rather than grades and accolades. This, I believe, is the transformative potential of our philosophy. By choosing to act as if we don't want anyone's attention, we not only free ourselves, but we also contribute to a cultural shift. We become part of a counterculture of authenticity in a world often dominated by performance. But let us not be naive. This path is not an easy one. In a world that often equates attention with worth, choosing to act as if we don't want attention can feel like swimming against the tide. We may face misunderstanding, we may be overlooked, we may even be criticized for not playing the game. Yet I would argue that this is a small price to pay for the freedom and authenticity we gain. As I wrote in The Last Battle, I have come home at last. This is my real country. I belong here. This is the land I have been looking for all my life, though I never knew it till now. When we choose to act as if we don't want anyone's attention, we come home to ourselves. We find our real country, our true belonging, not in the fleeting approval of others, but in the deep satisfaction of living authentically and purposefully. Moreover, by choosing this path, we give others permission to do the same. We create spaces of authenticity in our relationships, our workplaces, our communities, we demonstrate that it's possible to live and work and create without being driven by the constant need for validation and attention. As we near the conclusion of our discourse, let us consider one final aspect of our philosophy. Its spiritual dimension. As I wrote in Mere Christianity, look for yourself and you will find in the long run only hatred, loneliness, despair, rage, ruin, and decay. But look for Christ and you will find him, and with him everything else thrown in. When we act as if we don't want anyone's attention, we create space for something greater than ourselves. We open ourselves to the divine, to the eternal, to that which transcends the fleeting nature of human attention and approval. This is not to say that we should ignore or devalue human relationships and connections. Far from it. As I wrote in the Four Loves, to love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it carefully round with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable. By acting as if we don't want anyone's attention, we paradoxically open ourselves to deeper, more authentic connections. We become capable of loving not for what we can get, but for what we can give. We become vulnerable in the best sense of the word, open to genuine relationship, genuine impact, genuine love. In closing, my dear friends, let me share with you a final thought from the last battle. But for them, it was only the beginning of the real story. All their life in this world and all their adventures in Narnia had only been the cover and the title page. Now at last they were beginning chapter 1 of the great story which no one on earth has read, which goes on forever, in which every chapter is better than the one before. Let this philosophy of acting as if you don't want anyone's attention be the beginning of your real story. Let it be the key that unlocks a life of greater authenticity, deeper purpose, and more meaningful impact. Let it be the compass that guides you through life's adventures, always pointing you towards growth, towards truth, towards the best version of yourself. Thank you. And may you find the courage, the wisdom, and the peace to live this philosophy in your own life. May your journey be filled with the deep satisfaction that comes from living authentically, contributing meaningfully, and loving genuinely, all without seeking the spotlight. As you leave this hall today, carry with you the knowledge that your worth is not determined by the attention you receive, but by the authenticity with which you live and the impact you make. Choose to act as if you don't want anyone's attention, not out of indifference or apathy, but out of a deep commitment to living your truest, most purposeful life. Remember, as I wrote in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, courage, dear hearts. It takes courage to step away from the constant pursuit of attention, to risk being overlooked or misunderstood. But I assure you the rewards of go forth with hope, with determination, and with the unwavering belief in your own inherent worth. Be kind to yourself along the way. Celebrate the moments of genuine connection and impact. Learn from the times when you fall back into attention-seeking behaviors, and never lose sight of the magnificent being you are becoming. And as you do so, remember that by choosing to act as if you don't want anyone's attention, you are not just transforming your own life, but contributing to a broader shift in our culture. You are helping to create a world where authenticity is valued over performance, where impact matters more than image, where genuine connection trumps shallow popularity. In this way, your individual choice becomes a powerful act of cultural change. As I wrote in Mere Christianity, good and evil both increase at compound interest. That is why the little decisions you and I make every day are of such infinite importance. Each time you choose authenticity over attention-seeking, each time you focus on impact rather than image, you are making a deposit in the bank of a better world. You are contributing to a culture of genuineness, of purpose, And so, my dear friends, as we draw this discourse to a close, let us remember that the philosophy of acting as if we don't want anyone's attention is not about becoming invisible or insignificant. Rather, it is about becoming so authentically ourselves, so deeply engaged in our purpose, that we transcend the need for constant validation and approval. As I wrote in The Weight of Glory, it would seem that our Lord finds our desires not too strong but too weak. We are half-hearted creatures, fooling about with drink and sex and ambition, when infinite joy is offered us, like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in a slum, because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at the sea. We are far too easily pleased. In the same way, when we constantly seek attention, we are settling for mud pies when a holiday at the sea is being offered to us. We are contenting ourselves with fleeting validation when the infinite joy of living authentically and purposefully is available. So I challenge you, as you leave this hall and return to your daily lives, to aim higher. Aim not for attention, but for authenticity. Aim not for applause, but for impact. Aim not for popularity. Remember, as I wrote in The Lion, the witch and the wardrobe, once a king or queen of Narnia, always a king or queen of Narnia. In the same way, once you embrace this philosophy of acting as if you don't want anyone's attention, it becomes a part of who you are. It shapes your identity, your choices, your very being. Go forth with courage, with determination, and with the unshakable belief in your own inherent worth. Be kind to yourself along the way. Celebrate the moments when you succeed in living authentically. Learn from the times when you fall back into old patterns, and never lose sight of the magnificent being you are becoming. And as you do so, remember that yours to act in this way is not just for you alone. It is a gift you give to the world, a light that illuminates the path for others. In choosing to act as if you don't want anyone's attention, you become a beacon of authenticity, a source of inspiration, a force for genuine connection in a world often dominated by superficiality. Thank you, and may your journey be filled with the joy that comes from living a life unbound by the need for constant attention, driven by purpose, and characterized by authentic growth and meaningful impact. Go forth and be your truest self, and in doing so, make the world a little more authentic too. Repute, let me leave you with one final thought from the last battle. All their life in this world and all their adventures had only been the cover and the title page. Now at last they were beginning chapter one of the great story which no one on earth has read, which goes on forever, in which every chapter is better than the one before. My friends, let this be the beginning of your great story. A story not written for the attention of others, but penned authentically from the depths of your being. A story of purpose, of impact, of genuine connection. A story that, though it may not always grab hands or trend on social media, will leave an indelible mark on the hearts and lives of those you touch. Remember, the most profound impacts are often made quietly, without fanfare or spotlight. Like a seed growing beneath the soil, your authentic life and purposeful actions may not always be visible, but they are powerfully transformative. So go forth, dear ones. Act as if you don't want anyone's attention, not out of indifference, but out of a deep commitment to living your truest, most impactful life. Trust that by focusing on being your authentic self and fulfilling your unique purpose, you will naturally attract the right kind of attention. Not the fleeting spotlight of fame, but the lasting recognition that comes from making a real difference in the world. And may your journey be blessed with moments of profound insight, unexpected joy, and continuous growth. May you find the courage to be yourself, the wisdom to focus on what truly matters, and the peace that comes from living in alignment with your deepest values and highest purpose. Thank you. And may you go forth to write your great story, one authentic, purpose